Good evening and welcome to Tyler Carlin Tonight. Hate to start off Saturday night on a grim note, but let's talk about betrayal. Not political betrayal. No, not yet. That comes later. Now we're starting closer to home. Much closer. Imagine being in your early 20s. Maybe you're a student. Perhaps you're building something. Perhaps you're just trying to figure out what kind of life you want to live. Now imagine every decision you make is questioned. Every ambition is mocked. Every spark of independence is smothered. Not by the government, not by big tech, but by your own family. Because the most brutal betrayals aren't shouted from podiums. They're whispered over dinner. They're disguised as just looking out for you. They come in the form of curfews long after you've grown up, questions laced with suspicion, and orders disguised as advice. And when you push back, they don't get curious. They don't listen. They escalate. They become Logan Roy from Succession ×2. Your parents suddenly morph into CEOs of a failing legacy brand called you, barking orders from the top floor of a dying empire. They don't want answers, they want submission. They don't ask who you are, but they tell you. And God forbid you show up with dreams or worse, a camera. You say you're going to the city to take pictures, to shoot an event, to build a portfolio, a name, a brand. And what do they say? Oh, what's the point of that? As if meaning and purpose must be pre-approved by people who haven't updated their software since 1997. And it's not just generational trauma. It's philosophical. They worship control. And that's where the betrayal lives. In the quiet realization that your parents, your so-called guardians, aren't here to protect you. They're here to preserve themselves. And that preservation means keeping you small, obedient, and familiar. It means crushing the very thing that they were supposed to nurture. And let's not pretend that this is just bad parenting. No, this is a worldview, and that worldview is the same as the one that elected people like Donald Trump. The same one that put Elon Musk on a pedestal and said, there, that's our savior. And suddenly you realize that authoritarian rot didn't start in Washington, it started in the living room. You see, when Logan Roy yells, "You are not a serious person," he's not just talking to Kendall, he's talking to you. He's talking to every young person who dare to believe in themselves, who dare to try, who dare to build a life outside the blueprint written for them in passive-aggressive silence. But maybe we're wrong to be shocked, because this is the culture we've built. We told parents that they were gods. We told billionaires that they were visionaries. We told Elon Musk he was a genius for inventing PayPal. And when he bought Twitter to protect freedom of speech, what he really bought was control. The same control your parents want when they blow up your phone because you didn't text them when you left the building. You think this isn't connected? It's exactly the same energy. These people, your parents, Elon Musk, the Logan Roys of the world, they don't care what the truth is. They care about who's in charge of it. And that's exactly why the moment you step outside their control, when you go to a city, outside of the suburbs, or take a photo, or build something without permission, they panic, because your freedom is their failure. Your autonomy exposes their fragility. And so they lash out, like children, but louder, more violent, more convinced that they're right. And you become Kendall Roy in the bathroom, biting your sleeve, trying not to scream. You become Roman, pretending it's all fine while the humiliation just burns. You become Shiv, sharp, calculating, always 2 steps from cutting everyone off. Or maybe you become Connor, deluded, isolated, and desperate to believe in anything at all. But eventually, you stop playing their game. Because you realize that you were never the child. You were always the threat. And that terrifies them. Because control only works if you don't know you're being controlled. The moment you see it, the moment you name it, they lose. So they escalate. They punish you for waking up, for resisting, and for daring to become something other than their puppet. And here's where it turns. This doesn't end in the home. It starts there, but the rot spreads. It infects everything. Because when weak parents raise their children on fear, shame, and guilt, they create hollow men. And what do hollow men do when they grow up? They run companies. They run governments. They run everything badly. And when they feel the same fear creeping in that someone younger, smarter, freer might rise up, they react the same way your parents did. They panic. They lash out. They tighten the grip. This isn't theoretical. This is the exact arc of power in America. Donald Trump wasn't just some fascist mastermind. He was a broken man looking for a father who never hugged him back, and a mirror that only ever told him that he was a king. His legacy is a trail full of sycophants, lawsuits, and golden toilets. Elon Musk, the man who built rockets to escape Earth but can't escape his own insecurity. He bought a platform to feel loved and turned it into a playground for incels and crypto grifters. He didn't buy Twitter for freedom, he bought it because he couldn't buy affection. And now we're being ruled by them, a class of paranoid boys cosplaying as leaders. Corporate Kendall Roys in $5,000 suits, begging for daddy's approval while firing half their workforce in the name of innovation. It would be funny if it wasn't ruining lives. But here's the kicker. They know. They know that they're weak. They know that they're frauds. That's exactly why they overcompensate. That's why they turn every institution into a surveillance state. That's why they criminalize dissent, turn cameras on classrooms, and treat every young person with ambition like a potential threat. Because the biggest threat to a weak man with power is someone who knows who they are. Because when someone who knows who they are, they can't be manipulated. They can't be bribed. They can't be bought with fake affection or bullied into silence with old stories and power plays. Now think about Succession. Think about Kendall Roy, sweating in boardrooms, gasping for approval, building revolutions just to burn them down so daddy might look at him like a man for 5 seconds. Think about Roman, quick with a joke and a pervert with a punchline, because he was never allowed to be taken seriously. Every time he tried, Logan slapped him back down like a disobedient dog who thought he was family. Now think about Shiv, who clawed her way to the top, who tried to play both sides, who said she was different, but in the end she folded, and she folded to a monster. She kissed the ring of the man who broke them all, because that's what trauma does when it's dressed up in wealth and legacy. It convinces you that survival means obedience. And then there's Connor. Desperate, delusional, half-present, a man so ignored by his father that he tried to run for president just to be noticed. Tell me that's not America. Tell me that's not your own house. Because this is the kind of family the system was built on. This is the model. A father who rules by fear, children who self-destruct under the weight of his silence. And an empire, a country, held together not by love, but by leverage. They tell you that this is tradition. They call it order. They call it masculinity. But let's be honest, this isn't strength. This is abuse in a three-piece suit. And the moment you break that cycle, when you say no more, when you stop answering the phone, when you stop asking for permission, that's when the entire machine begins to shake and crumble. Because power at its core is emotional, and emotional power lives in your past. It lives in what your parents told you who you were. It lives in the shame you still carry on for speaking too loudly, dreaming too boldly, disobeying too publicly. It's not your fault you feel stuck. It's not your fault that you flinch when they screamed. That's not weakness. That's conditioning. That's what control does when it marinates you from birth. But here's the terrifying part. For them, not you. Once you stop seeking approval, once you realize that there's nothing left to win in their little game, once you see them as just men, not gods, not mentors, but just damaged men, you become unstoppable. Because now you're not Kendall Roy crawling back. You're Logan's ghost standing over them with all the power they were too afraid to ever claim for themselves. And when that happens, they panic. Because the thing that they fear more than death is irrelevance. And when you stop asking for permission, you make them irrelevant. That's why they cling on to institutions. That's why Elon Musk bought Twitter. That's why Trump screamed into a gold toilet. That's why every right-wing grifter clutches a Bible that they've never read and brings out a constitution from their shirt pocket that they've never read just to use as a prop, and screams about tradition that they never followed. It's the same fear. What if the children stop listening? Which brings us back to the house, the family, the origin point of tyranny. Imagine being in your 20s, an adult by every definition, but being tracked like a criminal because you dared to spend more than 8 hours outside. Imagine being accused, not of wrongdoing, but of independence. Imagine being screamed at not because you failed, but because you dared to succeed without permission. Now ask yourself, how is that any different from the way that they treat whistleblowers, protesters, and independent journalists? It's the same playbook, the same paranoia, the same need to crush what they can't control and can't understand. They tell you to stay home, stay quiet, and stay in line because the outside is dangerous, the cities are dangerous, the people are dangerous. But what they're really saying is freedom is dangerous. All because freedom means that they're no longer the center of your world. Freedom means that you found your own identity. Freedom means that their rules don't apply. And that is exactly what makes them truly afraid. Which brings us to the conclusion. And I want you to really hear this. Alright? We're being ruled by the weakest men imaginable. Men whose parents failed them. Men who now fail us. Men who saw love as control and now spread that sickness everywhere they go. But here's the good news. They are crumbling. Their masks are slipping. And when they fail, they will fall. And it won't be because of some massive uprising. It'll be because of their own cowardice finally became too heavy to carry. And that's what brings down weak men. Not bullets, not protests. Shame. Shame that their lies no longer work. Shame that their children see through their bullshit. Shame that the very people they try to control now walk free while they rot in their palaces of paranoia. That's justice, that's power, and that's what's coming. Good night, I'm Tyler Carlin, and I see right through you.